Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As we are sitting together to record this podcast, it is the 40th day since the start of the war. It's the 40th day since the bombing of the Minab school and the killing of over 160 children, mostly girls. And more importantly, it is the 40th day since the shahadat of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. The war that was imposed on Iran 40 days ago was partly pushed by the media. There was a strong rhetoric, a narrative saying that the theocracy in Iran, or in more layman's term, the regime of the mullahs, is an oppressive regime that needs to be toppled down and the Iranians need to be freed. And this was the narrative that was being pushed forward that eventually led to this war. Now we are here sitting today to discuss a different perspective, a different aspect, a different narrative regarding everything that's going on. So, Assalamu alaikum to all my guests, my dear viewers, and the audience that's attended live, and welcome to the battle of the narrative. This is where you're gonna show them. Yeah, you're gonna change the angles. And welcome to the battle of narratives. So when this war happened on the first day, one of the most bitter incidents, I would say, in recent history happened. The brutal killing of a very important personality, Sayyid Ali Khamenei. This was something that touched many hearts. A lot of people cried. I wasn't here personally myself. I had traveled at that time, but alhamdulillah, we have our guests over here, Sheikh Ali and Sheikh Mustafa, who are here. So I think it would be nice to start the discussion by hearing your personal experience on how you felt on that day when that happened, when you heard the news, and what did you see around you, what was happening to the people around. If you can start with Sheikh Mustafa.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for having us here today. Well, discussing this is truly difficult for us, and personally for myself, because of course this personality, apart from being one of the highest positions in terms of fiqh and in terms of Islamic scholarship, he also was a very spiritual person, and we learned from him throughout our lives. Since we were here from the start of our presence in Qom, we benefited from him spiritually, I'm sure. But that particular day when this happened, we were not expecting it, frankly. In the night, I was just, in fact, I stayed up quite a bit because I was worried, and I had questions coming in on what's going on, like, is it really happening? Did it really happen? Because, you know, that person had already announced at night that in his tweet that this has happened. So I was saying that let's wait for it to have let's wait for the official confirmation from Iran, from the Iran news. And I just rested a bit and wanted to wake up for Sahri. Now, you know, when you wake up for Sahri, normally it's a nice environment. You sit down with your family and you prepare yourself spiritually. You want to have Sahari and you want to recite dua. And alhamdulillah, you know, the Iranian channels, you know, you turn on Qom channel, it tells you exactly how many minutes are left for the adhan, and how much time you have for Sahari, and how much time you have for performing your ibadat and things like that. So it's a family atmosphere basically, where we all want to sit down and perform all of these things. And now just imagine when you turn on the TV and suddenly you see someone saying inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Like, that was it was a punch in the heart basically, and it was something that we could not express ourselves literally. Like, it was a big shock for us, and well, it changed the whole atmosphere. For apparently we couldn't even have Sahari that day, and we just entered the fast, and in the morning we went to Haram. So there was a gathering in Haram, and literally without any announcement, like, there was no announcement, like, you know, someone has become shaheed, of course there was an announcement that he has become shaheed, but there was no specific announcement that all of you come to Haram at this particular time and we'll have something. It was like people themselves, they just suddenly calibrated themselves towards Bi Fatimatul Masuma. And they gravitated towards that personality for whom they can seek for hope and energy. And everyone came to the haram. And yeah, it was a really difficult atmosphere. It was very heavy, very sad. At the same time, it was epic, because you see those people, how from the very start, Ayatollah Khamenei's blood had the effect of gathering these hearts. You could see that in that first moment of that when the pure blood had fallen. And the interesting part was people got a lot of energy from then on to stick to the true path of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam's movement and the resistance.
I guess it was like a red line that nobody ever thought that this red line would ever be crossed. Like, you can insult us, you can do everything you want, but at the end of the day, this was like seen as it was sanctified, right? So you don't touch this. You touch everything else, but you don't touch this. And the fact that they had the audacity to start a war by killing him, I think even those people who sometimes used to even not be careful and say bad things or express like their displeasure of economic situation and stuff, even those would have been very shocked to be like, okay, this is too much now, right?
Yes, definitely. This was the case. Like those people who were having some kind of grievances here and there, their grievance was not directly related to Rahbar. Always Rahbar or Sayyid Ali Khamenei was the red line. Like they would not expect that they would be economically happy but not have Rahbar. This was like out of the equation completely. Rahbar was not in this equation. The normal people here were like, we know Rahbar is concerned about us. We know that maybe there are some errors here and there that some lower level officials are making. But at the end of the day, however harsh the economic conditions are, our leader is our red line. This was clear from the attitude of the people. Even if sometimes people would say some things, but when it came down, deep down in their hearts.
Deep down in the hearts, the people's hearts were there, and
completely.
This actually showed it, right? So we were not there, but we actually saw the videos of people coming out in the streets. And it felt like that time when Imam Khomeini's announcement was made that he's passed away. And those videos of people pouring out in the streets, like you're saying, there's no announcement like, oh, people come out. It's literally, you can't stay at home. You don't even want to stay at home, right? You want to come out. Sheikh Ali?
Similar situation to Sheikh Mustafa was also Sahri. We were sitting together and the TV announced the news. We all fell silent, a sense of disbelief. One thing that was alive at the time, but alhamdulillah, Allah has also taught us how to move forward in such a difficult situation, was the sense of confusion. Losing a leader, losing the person who's the guide, losing the person that in any situation where things would be difficult, we'd wait for his statement, wait for his speech, wait for his guidance. In the most challenging of times, he had such clear guidelines and such a clear hope-giving message that at this point we were looking towards his message. While saying that, in the space of a few days, the people got this guidance from Allah, where they were able to even move forward in such a difficult situation. And that was really beautiful to see. So of course the shock and disbelief and the pain is ever present. I mean, till now, we've not been able to even allow that pain to open up. But with that, the people gained a new strength that would be unimaginable at such a time. That was beautiful to see. Another thing that was really beautiful to see that happened very quickly is his statements on Shahadat. Very beautiful statements, cries from the bottom of his heart. One of them is a video that he's reciting the Salat al-Janaza, Salat al-Mayyit of one of the martyrs, and he's crying out from the bottom of his heart that Allah give us jihad in your way. Allah give us shahada in your way. The blood to be spilt like this.
Especially that video of him reciting those 2 lines of poetry that we used to claim to be in the first line, and they pick the shuhada from the back.
And he begins to cry. And so in one way we had that solace in our hearts that this was the end that he wanted. And one thing moving on from that was the very quick selection of a new leader. In the format that it happened, this brought a lot of strength to the people.
Ahsantum. So inshallah we'll come to this. We'll come to the selection of the new leader and how this whole ties into the narrative. So the media is very strong in portraying a very particular perspective on this personality, and I think that the what you have said right now, in the emotion that was expressed by the people at that time, was a witness to the fact that the media has been twisting things around, has been even lying to their people, right? The Ayatollah Khamenei that the people out there know is very different to the Ayatollah Khamenei that you guys know, that you inshallah today we're going to talk about and represent. So before we move on to discussing the system and so on, again it will be very nice for us to hear if you have any personal experiences with him. Have you had the chance to meet him? Have you seen him? Have you benefited from him in any ways?
Personally, I've had a chance to, I was counting just this week, meet him from a distance. I never got a chance to speak to him face by face, but meet from a distance 7 times. So different speeches that would happen that we'd go and be present in. Twice in Salatul Eid. In fact, once we were together when we went for the Salatul Eid that we would recite. The points that he would mention are engraved in my mind. Not only because of his style of speaking, which was beautiful and amazing, but because of the relevance of the points at that time. I remember, maybe we were together as well, the time where one of the martyrs, there was a Salatul Jum'ah that he led after the martyrdom of one of the martyrs. And I particularly remember the points that he said, beautifully drawn out from the verses of the Quran. He presented the verses of Ayyamullah very beautifully, and he moved on to the next page and he presented the verse in such a way that you feel, wow, Islam has guidance on all of these things. We just need a person like him who's truly understood it with the depths of his existence to come out and explain it beautifully. So his speeches are engraved in my mind. Like, I can remember each speech, even the ones, some of them I attended 14 years ago, but I still remember the points that he mentioned. So life-changing, and that's the speeches I go to hear in person. Obviously the speeches that we followed by listening to the television or the write-ups that existed, again, points that are unmatched. So the guidance that he would provide.
Do you think his speeches would be a good representation of who he was as a person?
Incredible. I think if somebody was able to read, some of his speeches may seem long, but the language that he uses is so easy to understand and so appealing and so relevant. I want to touch on this, that, every time, I was just reading some of his speeches yesterday, and the way he addresses burning issues right head on, but with such a beautiful style that you enjoy it. You don't feel like he's stirring up controversy, and it's clear. What he's explaining is very clear. So definitely, if a person is able to even read parts of his speeches, read the different meetings he had different meetings with different groups of people. They've made some documentaries out of them as well. I think it would be the best way to understand what his stances were, what kind of a person he was, and generally all about him.
Awesome. Sheikh Mustafa, how would you say Ayatollah Shaykh Khamenei was relevant to you as a Hawza student?
Yes. As a Hawza student, there are certain 2-3 things that we really need to have. There are many things, but there are a few things that I feel are very important. One of the things is to have that encouragement and the energy to continue, because Hawza subjects are not so easy as you have experienced, mashallah. It's not like some people might think, what are the Hawza scholars doing in Qom sometimes for years, sometimes even lesser, and what are the subjects, like what is being taught, and you realize definitely those who are inside, and of course that's all the subjects are like that. Also the other ones that normally you can say that the secular subjects, so to say, they also are difficult, but the religious subjects, because of the important the importance of accuracy,
the sensitivity of
the matter, all of these require a lot of hard work. And I remember one of the sessions that Rahbar Shahid he had given was with the foreign students, and in that session he mentioned to the foreign students that you are not guests here, you are house owners, this is your place. And this was very warm coming from a fatherly figure like that, the topmost leader of Iran telling you people that you are the homeowners, we are there to serve you. And this was amazing. This gives you so much hope, so much energy. Another thing that he was very careful about was in his lectures, there are several lectures that he has given on what subjects that a Hausa students need to focus on. He insisted on fiqh al-usul, but at the same time he also gave very much importance to the intellectual and rational subjects like philosophy, like logic, up to theoretical irfan to a certain degree, based on firm principles, of course, from riwayat and from the Quran, based on those bases. So he was very, very vast in his approach. Apart from those subjects, he also stressed on the present day subjects. The present day subjects that include economics, that include social sciences, human sciences, that are sometimes not directly derived from the verses of the Quran and the riwayat. Of course they should be, but at the moment they haven't been completely derived. And therefore to make a, you can say, a kind of a research, targeted research on these subjects also, this was his insistence. And we noticed that during his leadership, so many different institutes opened up focusing on these subjects. And I can say for sure, the Hausa students at the time of Ayatollah Shaheed Sayyid Khamenei are more well-rounded than the Hausa students before that, or who are generally, I can say, before that. Why do I say so? It's because of the well-roundedness. It's because of the concern of the leadership in that. And that also gave us hope. Like when you look at the verses of the Quran, when you look at the riwayat, and you look at all of these subjects, you get to a very strong understanding of what's happening around you. And finally, is his attention to Quran. Like, it's amazing that in every lecture, as Sheikh Ali also mentioned here, he would definitely mention verses of the Quran, and he would remove meanings with social implications, with the practical implications in such a wonderful way. And that was a lesson itself. We as Hausa students, he was teaching us practically on how to take Quran seriously in our lives, and also the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam with a beautiful perspective, especially the perspective he used to give. And this was, of course, an amazing journey for us. Every lecture was a lesson. And I can tell you, every lecture was definitely life-changing. One of the most life-changing lectures, at least I had, was, the green movement that happened. This was like almost now, you can say
15 years?
16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I was literally in the situation at that time, literally. And we would come out in the nights and see what's happening. And sometimes we would see the news, and we could see how much there were some differences being created and being cooked amongst the people. And Rahbar was silent for quite some time, because Ayatollah Khamenei's wisdom in seeing how the community and how the small leaders, the younger leaders, or the leaders at the lower position are handling the issue, and he would give them that freedom to make sometimes even errors and learn through their mistakes. He would just watch, but watch carefully. And he gave a Friday sermon right towards the end of this whole fiasco. And I remember that Friday sermon, we had, I think, more than 3 to 4 million people gathered.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was so amazing that the lecture that he gave was so powerful that literally after he gave that lecture, after he gave that khutbah, now that's another discussion on what he discussed in that khutbah, the fitna started to dwindle. It started to go towards a downward curve, and in the end it finished. He gave such powerful points. These are just some simple examples of how powerful he was.
So that's the amazing thing about him. Like you said, I think these two things really stood out from him, at least for me. One is that, like you mentioned, how he was making the Islamic, so the Quran and Islamic topics relevant for us today, right? His ability to extract information from the Quran and show you very simply, and sometimes you feel like, oh, how did I not get this?
How did I miss that?
How did I miss that? Right?
Truly.
And he's able to show how this verse applies itself to today's social context. That was just amazing. And that ties into his insight. So that's another thing that really stood out, was that when he would speak, he would bring clarity to the things that are happening on ground. Right, so all you had to do was wait for him to speak, and you know exactly what needs to be done. You need to know exactly what stance to take, and usually because of his experiences, his knowledge, and his insight, usually the stance he took or the side his explanations usually turned out to be correct.
Yes.
Right, he had that foresight. He understood how these things worked. So this was something really amazing. Did you get to meet him?
No, unfortunately, not directly. No, unfortunately, we but sometimes very close, like literally just a few meters away. But we didn't get the opportunity to meet him, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but the main thing is that we would have, inshallah, benefited from his teachings, from his insight, and get inspired from that. Alhamdulillah, the people working on his works. There's a lot of work being done in producing books based on his speeches and his thoughts. So there's a lot of content out there. Some of it has also been translated in different languages, especially in English, and this kind of material is available. Unfortunately, one thing that really hurts often is that this kind of personality, when they're alive, they're not given enough importance to. We have to wait for them to pass away, sometimes in a brutal manner, for us to wake up and realize the importance of such a person. And now that he's passed away, he's given his blood, we realize his importance, and now we'll go and study what he said. Just a bit too late. Inshallah, it's not too late in the sense that we continue to benefit, and we know we can keep up the work he was doing and push the movement forward, inshallah.
The variety of topics he's covered is something that has left us with a wealth.
Yes.
If you want, I was just searching, sometimes some topics that, like Sheikh Mustafa said, right, you're a leader, right? The Hawza has got a lot of maraja, there's people running the Hawza brilliantly. But you look at his guidance on the Hawza, they've been able to compile a full book based on his guidance for the Hawza students. When you look at matters, I don't know if we'll discuss some of these, but women's issues, right? The whole world, the way they look at a woman. You look at, for example, child upbringing. You look at lifestyle. He had a whole series of lectures in North Khorasan for lifestyle, 10 lectures based on living in an apartment, living with neighbors, living with other people in the house. Like that variety of topics he's touched. And these are just examples. I mean, these are ones that you wouldn't expect somebody in his position to touch upon.
A very all-rounded person, very comprehensive in his understanding. I think that's what made him a successful leader as well, right? And we'll talk about his leadership, but one of the key components of leadership is knowledge. And if your knowledge, the more you're comprehensive in your knowledge, the more all-rounded you're in your knowledge, the better you can see things and you can make decisions based on that. Just because you mentioned his views on women, I think one of the ways to just see through the propaganda, the media propaganda, is to look at what Ayatollah Khamenei, Shaykh Khamenei says about women. That at certain point you realize that, wow, it's amazing how much not only importance he gives to women, how sometimes we have misunderstood the role of women in society, how we have misunderstood, how we sometimes, the very religious person on the street, how he, for example, judges the person that doesn't have hijab, and how Ayatollah Khamenei actually says that, no, this is how you're supposed to perceive it. Even this woman that might not have hijab, don't look at her like a person who's sinning and judge her based on that. See her as a person who has a sin, just like I have sins, she has sins. Her sins are outward, my sins are inward. He would give perspectives like that if a person that's not a Muslim, that's not living in Iran, looks at women from Shaheed Khamenei's perspective, I think the status of women would rise in his eyes.
Yes.
And that I thought was absolutely amazing, and it's crazy how media has twisted things so much that he is known as the person who oppresses women, whereas in our circles we'd be like, wait a minute, you bring them a bit too high, aren't you?
There's just a recent speech, the Wiladat of Bi Fatima Salamullah Alayha, where he spoke about women in such a way that the women in the audience couldn't control themselves. They started clapping and whistling and cheering because he's spoken about them in such a manner. And this was, by the way, a viral clip that was sent by many wives to their husbands to understand, look, this is the Islamic perspective, get it right now.
It's just amazing to see the position of a leader of such a high caliber. But as Sheikh also mentioned once, if we want to have an understanding about his personality, just look at who he has met. Sometimes he is meeting with poets. And you can see him commenting on poetry. Still, there was one clip of an Indian lady that was, India, they still study Farsi, they still study Persian. By the way, before the Brits came and they had their colonial, tentacles on India, India's language was, the official language was Persian. So they have good history of Persian language. So this lady had come from India, and she was reciting her poetry, and Rapper appreciated her poetry. At the end, she said, "Can I speak?" And she says that I was amazed to see that you are a leader and you have so many works, so many activities, and yet you are able to dissect poetry and even point out the faults of poets. So, like, what level you have reached?
There's multiple videos of it. Where
yeah.
the poet reads something and he politely listens and he says, "What if you said it like this?"
What if you said it like
that? And I guess, wow, that's much better.
Yeah, the meaning turns better. Or, for example, he's meeting with the war veterans. Sometimes the war veterans were their backbones, let's say, were broken, or they were completely, in bed rest. And he would come, and we've seen how fatherly he would embrace them, he would hug them and kiss them, and make them feel important for what they've done. The mercy that would flow from him. Yes, we see that, for example, he was firm against disbelievers. Firm against, especially disbelievers here, I mean those people who are fighting against the human values and true values. He would speak firm against them, but at the same time, he was very kind and merciful towards his people. Such was his kindness and mercy that I remember at one time, there were some protests that happened, and people tore his pictures. And this is common. Not common. This was something that had happened, and when they tore his pictures,
it's common for these kind of protesters to do that.
Yeah, for this kind of protest. So sometimes they burned sometimes some pictures, or they tore some pictures. And there were some university students, they were young. And Rahbar said clearly, "What does it matter to you if they tore my pictures? That is not important for me. They are my children. These are my children. Sometimes a child makes a mistake." This was the type of mercy that he had.
So one of the really amazing aspects of Ayatollah Khamenei is that connection he had with his people, and this is where I feel like this idea that he was a person up there in a theocracy that's dictating over his people, that's oppressing the people. This is a completely I won't use any word, it's a lie, right? It's a lie full on. And I just want to mention this for those of you who are watching. If you want to participate in this battle of narratives in the world today with the media, the way it's going on, one of the things you can do, and this is not too difficult either, I think if every single person over here who wants to do something takes this up as a small task, part of their life, in picking out those videos and statements of Ayatollah Khamenei, Shaykh Khamenei, where he talks about these different aspects, and just spread them to people around you, spread them to your family, your friends, the non-Muslims around you, the non-Shias around you, those who don't know what things are, how things are working, those who don't know about his personality, and show them this aspect of him. That look, this person that the media is telling you was such and such a person, here are video clips of him interacting with war veterans, him interacting with children, him interacting with women. Look at how much respect he has with women. Look at his words and his opinion about the role of women in society. His opinion of, for example, the independence that a country should have, the economic independence should have, what kind of relationship a country should have with other countries. So he had, views on economics, he had views on politics, he had views on religion, he had views on philosophy, on poetry. If you're able to go on different platforms and pick out those videos and statements and spread them to the people around you, you'd be participating in this battle of narratives. You'd be taking the common narratives and fighting against that, right? Showing that no, there's actually a reality behind all of this, and what you are being taught is lies, is things, is not even twisted, is literally
inaccurate. It's totally inaccurate. It doesn't represent at all. One of the things that might be a surprise for people, I don't know if this was a surprise for you at the start when we came over here, is the amount of speeches he has. On average, he'd have at least, I would say, every 10 days, 2 speeches, or if say at minimum once a week, he would have some public meeting. Forget the private meetings that he has. A public talk, that his talks were, if you time, he's brilliant with time as well. 45 minutes on the dot. Some of them would exceed, but that's where they'd have back and forth. But his monologues, if you want, were 45 minutes, and we on a weekly basis addressing the most pertinent matters at the time. And there was a Western analyst saying that, I didn't appreciate this one before they said it, that there is no world leader that does this with his people, that considers his people at a mass audience. Forget the private meetings. That he says, for example, he said this in one statement, if you think that I don't remind the people in charge enough, know that if I say it once in public, I've said it 10 times to them in private. So these were his private meetings aside. His public meetings, he saw his people as able and capable to understand, and he wanted them to grow like this. The direct opposite of Fir'aun, right? فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَاعُوهُ. Fir'aun treated his people as insignificant, and that's why they followed him. That's the dictatorship model, right? That you don't understand anything, I understand everything, follow me. But he wanted his people to grow, and he would share the insights that he had with them in such a beautiful manner. That's why we have so much from him. The number of speeches that we have from him is incredible.
And his speeches are usually based on knowledge. They're usually well researched. He gives content, right? It's not like other world leaders where they just say stuff. They say stuff and then tomorrow that stuff might be wrong, or it might just be a statement. He would actually come up with proper solid content that people would analyze. There would be other scholars taking that 1 hour speech and then make an analysis that lasts few hours, right? So, and not to forget that whilst he was also the supreme leader of the country, for many years he also kept teaching Dars Kharij, right? The highest level of studies in the Hawza. So not only was he busy in his leadership, but he was also busy in studying and teaching as well, which is something again that's not seen in the world, right? This is an educated man that's taken leadership of a country, not a businessman that's just been voted, or random people like that. Now that we've started talking, gone in this direction, we've talked a bit about his characteristics and his qualities, but I think let's move and a step back and talk a bit more at a fundamental level. So Ayatollah Khamenei's role in Iran was the role of a supreme leader. In Farsi we call it Rahbar. Over here, in terms of the Islamic terminology, that's called the Wali al-Faqih, right? So Shaykh Mustafa, can you very briefly tell us a bit, explain what is a Wali al-Faqih?
So basically, there's a leadership model that the leaders of Iran, or the start when Imam Khomeini brought up the revolution with the help of the people and the scholars, they thought of a system whereby the topmost leader should be based on religious principles. That means this system has to be guided by the religion. But at the same time that it is guided by the religion, it needs to have another important dimension, and that is public support. It has to have the people on board. And that's why if you look at the name of the country, it's Jamhuriye Islami Iran.
Islamic Republic of Iran.
Islamic Republic of Iran. So yes, it has one Islamic dimension, but it has another dimension which is called a republic. A republic means that there is people's support for the government. But at the same time, it's Islamic. That means it's guided by Islamic principles.
Would you say that the word theocracy applies over there in such a system?
Yeah, it is a theocracy, but look, it's a theocracy that is based on people's, it's also depending on people wanting it. So it's not that a theocracy that is done by force. In fact, the reality of a true theocracy is when people are also involved in it. In fact, Rahbar, even Imam Khomeini, they were very, very much stressing the point of people. The people being the actual backbone of the strength of the community. And if you look at Rahbar's lectures on this issue, you will be shocked at the amount of importance he gives to the people. He says that the people have to be present. It's the people's support that will determine the future. It is the people that will that need to gain that much insight to be able to drive matters in the society. And that is why he would not be the one, although this is another topic, he would not be the main person driving policies. He would allow groups and people to raise. That's why that ta'alaw, the Quran says ta'alaw, that come up, grow. This is the beauty of Islamic leadership, that you tell people to grow.
I think there's a lot of places where you would find that Ayatollah Khamenei has a certain perspective on how things should be done, but he doesn't necessarily go and impose them, right?
Exactly.
He allows the system to get to that point.
Yes.
He will guide them, he will help them, he will advise, he will, show the pros and cons, but he won't necessarily impose something.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll come to that. There are very good examples for this that will come later on, inshallah. We'll discuss when we talk about certain policies that were made, inshallah. So we saw these two dimensions of the government are very important. Now, in such a system, the main leader that is on top is a wali. It's called a wali faqih. That means the one who has total authority. That means all other groups, all other governing bodies that are under him are under the wilaya of that faqih. But he's not only a wali, he's also a faqih. So he has authority, but that authority comes from the fact that he's a faqih.
Can you explain what you mean by faqih?
By faqih is a scholar who has reached the level of ijtihad, and he is able to derive laws for different situations in life, social life, public life, personal life, and even at the international level. He has that capacity to derive laws and recognize the duty, that God-given duty at all those scenarios. And that makes it a theocracy. But I said theocracy, not only theocracy, because it's also based on people's will. And that is why we have something called Majlis-e-Khobregan, what we call the Assembly of Experts. So what the Assembly of Experts does is that it gets together and chooses the Rahbar and elects basically the Rahbar. But this Assembly of Experts, which is around 88 mujtahids of the highest caliber, very high level, top level mujtahideen, they are also aware of the situations, and these Majlis al-Khobregan, or we call the Assembly of Experts, they are also adil. That means they don't commit major sins. These are the
they don't have personal biases. They don't follow their desires.
Yeah, they don't follow the desires. They don't commit sins openly. They have taqwa, basically. We call taqwa, and they have knowledge. These two major criteria are there, and they have other criteria also. That is, for example, aql and all that we discuss in fiqh. That for a marja taqlid or for mujtahid, he needs to have aql. He needs to have certain criteria. Those criteria are present in these scholars. Now, these scholars are chosen by the people. So regional based, from different regions of the country, these scholars are chosen. So you see that the
Assembly of Experts has representatives from all the different regions of Iran, and the people elect.
So there is a freedom from the people to choose whichever person they want to be the Majlis al-Khobregan. Then the Majlis al-Khobregan, or the Assembly of Experts, then choose the leader. And this has precedence in present day politics also, which if you want later on we can discuss the differences in our system of politics and their system of politics. So the Majlis al-Khobregan represents the will of the people. Very important. And by the way, the constitution, first of all, before we go ahead even, the constitution itself is chosen by the people. The constitution was approved by the people by a 99% vote. One of the hugest consensuses ever was done, and 99% accepted the constitution, direct voting. That's the amazing part. So now when we look at the pinnacle of authority, that is Rahbar, we say that he is not only a faqih, that means he has specialization. At the same time, he has backing of people, indirectly, and directly in the sense that the constitution has already been chosen directly by the people. So we need to keep that in mind.
So all of this is happening within a constitution. This isn't, this one person coming and imposing his method of governance on people.
Exactly.
It's a constitution that this constitution has given a place to this kind of authority that look, this person over here, if he has these qualifications, then he takes this role and he has these responsibilities in this whole system.
And very importantly, monitoring. So some people might say that, okay, they selected it and then they say, oh, we made a mistake. And now we have to, live with this ruler. Now he's, the wali, he must, he rules over us and continues until the end of his life. That's not the case. They have a continuous responsibility and they have termly meetings to discuss any of the stances that are against what they understand as 88 mujtahids that are adil from their understanding of Islam. And if there are any cases, they are legally allowed to bring that up, and it's got a procedure where they can put the wali under question. The same way with the Guardian Council, 12 people, 6 fuqaha and 6 lawyers, as in 6, we call them further than lawyers actually, they'd be people that are specialized in law. Get together, again, one of their responsibilities is to monitor this person, to see if there's any mistakes, any flaws happening. A brilliant system that, you've got an election process, and election, another point about the election is the election of experts. One of the issues that can happen in elections is that, okay, I want to, for example, let's all get together to elect the best architect to make a building. But I don't know architecture. I'm not an architect myself. On what basis am I going to suggest that this person is the best? Because he's from my city, because I like him, because I know him from before, I trust him. But if you get, for example, the top level of architects that are elected by the people, because they know in their city who are the top scholars, these come together, and then as an assembly of experts, come together, it's their name as well. They come together to see who's the most suitable person for this role.
So what I find really fascinating in all of this is the recurrent theme of knowledge and awareness in education. In all levels of, at this higher level of the governance of the country, we continuously put emphasis and focus on the fact that these people have to be well educated at the highest level of education, the highest level of awareness and knowledge. I don't know if there's a precedence of this in other countries, right? Normally, in other countries, you can, you come and you have your campaign, and if people like your thoughts, then they would vote for you. You don't necessarily have to have a certain qualification at this high level. So knowledge is something that's really important, and it's like the fundamental basis of this entire system, which I find is really amazing.
And knowledge of religion stemming from our solid, firm worldview, that all of the different matters in our lives must be guided by our Creator, by our Rabb. So the knowledge of religion being that pivotal, central knowledge.
And this is what Sheikh Migdad was talking about in the first episode of this series, when we talk about Tawheed, where it all goes back to Tawheed. So it's basically a system that is trying to implement a Tawheedi worldview, at a social level. And that's really crucial, that's really critical, especially for the Muslim Ummah. For the Muslim Ummah needs to understand that over here, this is not just a population of Muslims that are trying to live an individualistic Islamic lives in their own, personal lives. This is an effort to bring the Tawheed in people's lives, individual lives and social lives. And how do you do that? You base it on the Quran and the Sunnah. And who is more adapted to take the Quran and the Sunnah and to pull out laws from it? These are the people, the mujtahideen, the educated people. So they come and they study this and they've created the whole system. I just think it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially if you consider the two pillars that we talked about here. That means there is in leadership, there's expertise and there's popular support.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing of Jumhuriya Islami is that it's been able to join these two aspects. And many, as you said, many political systems have not been able to do that. So other political systems have popular support and party politics. That's their basis. Or popular support and some kind of thought, let's say imperialism or maybe capitalism or socialism. So these two, and then that's what determines their party, how their party thinks. But we are not based on party politics or just popular support by itself, because sometimes popular support can make a mistake. People can make errors. So people themselves, because they know they can err, they vote for a constitution. They vote for those red lines whereby they can't escape those red lines. Who does that? The people themselves. It's just like when myself, for example, I keep for myself certain rules. That in my life, I will not do this, I will not do that. I will take care of certain principles. I'll be planned, I'll be organized in certain ways. I have my own principles. Those are red lines that I kept for myself. I am free because of that. Not that because I kept those red lines, I am confined to them.
I've chosen to be confined in them because I understand that these red lines are good for me.
They are good for me. They are good for my purpose. As Sheikh said, the worldview of Tawheed is going to lead me towards that. So I keep those restrictions. So these two are very important. But more important and wonderful about this political system is that it has got three parts: the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary. The interesting part is the parliament is also voted by the people. There is no selection. And the president, who is the head of the executive body, political body, is chosen through direct voting. That means the most important executive position is chosen through direct voting of the people. And when we say in Iran that, let's say, 50% of the people came out, 60% of eligible voters came out, at one point 80% people came out, 83% people, 85%. This doesn't mean just a certain group, an electoral council, let's say, electoral college. No, it doesn't mean that. It means 83% of the population directly voted for that person. This is an amazing thing. So people who sometimes might think, oh, there is a system which is where the people are not involved. No, the people are involved in a very serious way. And sometimes the president that is chosen may not be politically in line with the supreme leader. But the supreme leader was made sure, even under the highest pressure, not to mention his own opinion about who he thinks is the best and most eligible. Imagine, not even mentioning his opinion, let alone forcing people to choose one person. Because you know that people love him so much that just because Rahbar say they will choose someone. No, let the people be free in this, as long as they are within the boundaries of the constitution. That determines the qualities of the president, as you said, the specialization. That means at every level we require specialization. We don't allow that. That's not a compromise to make. A person has to be specialized. He has to have taqwa. He has to have leadership skills. And therefore the assembly, there's another assembly called the Expediency Council. No, what is it called? It's called the
Shura
Nigah, the Guardians Council. The Expediency Council is something else. It's the other Shura, which is Maslahat and Nizam, something else. This is the Guardians Council. The Guardians Council, it approves. For example, this person has the expertise. Again, who gives the authority for the Guardians Council to do that? The Constitution. Who chose the Constitution? The people. So this cycle goes back to the will of the people. Amazing. Like literally, I would advise politicians very firmly, without any fear, without being apologetic, to read the Constitution. I'm sure majority of the people who accuse Iran of not having people's backing and this type of thing, they have not read the Constitution. I challenge them to read the Constitution and compare it with others. We can do that. Do you want to compare with some politics? Do you want to take that step? We can compare, and if you compare, we will see that other political systems have been flaws.
Definitely, over the years, I'm not an expert in this, but over the years, my observation of how different political systems work, especially in the region when we compare it to other Muslim countries, you definitely see there's a big gap in how Islamic and how democratic Iran is compared to others. Right?
So the people's involvement is next level. I mean, that's, as Sheikh Musa has pointed out enough, that really it's central. I think one thing that really brings the people together, coming back and looping back to our previous point, is their firm, strong religious beliefs. A motto that's starting and beginning is with Allahu Akbar. A motto that's based on La ilaha illallah. A motto that puts forward our religious worldview, Tawheed, above everything else, is a motto that the people themselves, by their faith and the way they are, that's their identity, love that system. And then you find a leader that we had in such a system. I mean, the people, like we've been speaking about, right? The people were in love with such a person. I just mentioned one. Sorry, maybe it's on time, but one video that's been going around is really beautiful, where he's sitting on a stage in a covered area, and I think this is in the north of the country. I think it's in Rasht, if I'm not mistaken, and it's pouring down, and the people, some of them have umbrellas, most don't. Maybe it wasn't predicted or forecasted on that day. And he says at one point, okay, I'm going to cut my speech short because it's raining a lot. And the people all begin to chant slogans saying that, no, we want you to continue, we're fine. This rain is nothing, we'll take it. And he responds back saying that, look, I know you guys are ready for it, but me, in my position, I can't take it. You know, when the people saw this, look, you're in the middle of a speech, right? Like, this isn't the time to, it's not a time to joke around or mess around. And I think he did end his speech, by the way. He stopped his speech over there, right? Maybe another setting to complete the speech at a different time, but he could not tolerate the people being under the rain when he was in a shaded area. When the people see this, and they see the Islamic principles,
he
embodying
abided,
themselves.
exactly.
Yeah.
He lived by those Islamic principles.
Embodying themselves in him.
One thing that you mentioned was the party politics, right?
Yeah.
So in Iran that exists, but the beautiful thing is that the supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei, who's the representative who represents the people love him. He also represents the religion and that La ilaha illallah. He's above all of that. He's beyond all of that. He doesn't take sides. One side might be more aligned with his thoughts, but he never actively, whether verbally or even like showing inclination to one side or the other.
In fact,
whoever comes,
In fact, the opposite. There's a very famous story where he's narrated this. Again, the clips can be shared later, where one of the rulers, one of the heads of one of the political alignments, the one that maybe people would say the reformists aren't towards his views, came to him and complained that why is it the fundamentalists always say that you're on their side? And he replies back and he said to them that, look, I've never said that, that's not my quote. Why don't you claim the same as well, that I'm on your side as well? The wisdom in that, right? That, look, I'm completely not getting involved at that level. That's not the game. If you are going to be in line with the specialization that I have with Islam, with the worldview, then you claim it as well.
Amazing.
Exactly. So he's working on principles. It's beautiful how he went beyond these petty fights and perspectives, and this is where this party politics is often where the ego comes in, where you do something because it's at the benefit of your party, not necessarily because it's the truth. And he was beyond all of that.
Yes.
For him, it was what is haqq, and if it would even sometimes not harm him, but if he had to take a stance that necessarily wasn't like the most popular stance, if this was the truth, then he would stand by it. Right? He would stand by it. He would work with people who didn't see eye to eye with him. Right? We all know this. Those who know Iranian politics, they're aware of the fact that there has been many cases where presidents not only were not in line with him, but sometimes even contradict him. Right? And the way he managed those things without creating friction, without opposing in a way that creates disunity, without slandering or backbiting or insulting, without any of that, he would manage the situation in the way that will take the country forward, rather than bringing the country in a standstill because you didn't follow me and I am the supreme leader. No, he would just work around and let people even experience the consequences of, for example, sometimes choosing this kind of views that he, for example, believed they were not the right
and
views.
that brought about the love in the hearts of the people across the board. So you see the people grieving his loss are not from a certain party, not from a certain denomination, not from a certain even type of thinking, but you see across the board people were grieving his loss.
Yes, sometimes.
Adding to that, because it's a very interesting part of Rahbar, is that even sometimes, as you mentioned, that he would not look eye to eye with certain politicians, in the sense that, not literally, he would sit with them and eye to eye speak with them, in the sense that they might have some difference of opinion. Yet the amount of respect that he had for them, despite the fact that sometimes those individuals, out of some reason, would sometimes be almost, to a certain degree disrespectful, to a certain degree, maybe we would look at it that way because of our close connection with Rahbar. But what would Rahbar do? And when people would sometimes say bad things about them, people would not bad like they would openly maybe chant something. Rahbar would stop them.
He would defend them.
He would defend them and said, he is your president, or he's your, let's say, leader of a certain place. Respect him, and he would show that respect, and even sometimes give that backing to maintain that unity. One of those scenarios where, and one of the wonderful things is that for us as Muslims and Shias, it's not only about our relationships. It's not just about those political, let's say, connections. You've seen when Rahbar sometimes sat down with the political leaders. There's a nice video where he's sitting and the president is here, Agha Ladijani is here, the head of the Chief Justice, they're having a chat, like a very nice, respectful chat. Because at the end of the day, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. He's your brother at the end of the day. He's sitting with you, he's discussing with you about the country. Our concern is Islam. Yes, we have some difference of opinion, but yes, we are brothers at the end of the day. That's one thing. Another thing that is about the party politics that you mentioned. Just let me clarify the position of political parties. So in Iran, political parties are not integral in choosing a president or a prime minister. A president or prime minister can be affiliated, but when you vote for him, you don't vote for him as being part of a party. He is part of a party, very good, but that's not the integral reason why you choose him as a president. It doesn't determine. It's not one of the criteria.
It can be an influence, but it's not part of the system.
It's not part of the legal system.
It's not part. Yeah, it's not officially part of the legal system. Yes, you can have political parties, and Iran allows it.
Naturally, as they would form. Right? Naturally, groups of people gather around similar ideas. Naturally,
it allows political system. You can, for example, this particular group have this type of political system in their mind. They have written down books. They have theories. Well and good. Rahbar would encourage. Do political discourse. Form a political system in your mind for running, let's say, in the executive level, in the parliamentary level. Keep your awlawiyat, as they say, your priorities. Maybe sometimes certain people, they have other priorities, other people have others. Keep your priorities, have your politics. But then, there should not be the main reason why there should be disunity. And it should not be the main criterion to define your political position. Political position is defined by two things only. Your specialization and your religious affiliation, in your religious integrity. These are the things.
Excellent. So, whilst we're talking about the system, initially I wanted to pose the question about, why Sayyid Mujtaba has taken over from his father, and the fact that doesn't this mean that the system is hereditary? But alhamdulillah, we've discussed in a way that I think anybody who had this question, ideally it should be answered by now. That Sayyid Mujtaba did not come in place because he's his son. He was elected by the council of experts, 88 Mujtahideen, who found him to be the most suitable person in terms of knowledge and all the characteristics that a supreme leader needs to have. So I think when somebody understands how things function, these kind of questions don't come up. And this is why the narrative is very important, right? The way the system is portrayed, sometimes portrayed is twisted in a way that it brings about these questions. But when you understand that this is all based on a constitution, and then that's the beautiful thing, that when the other side thought that by killing Ayatollah Khamenei they're going to destroy the whole system, when he was shaheed, everything continued as normal. And that showed that the system was not reliant on one person. It wasn't one person controlling everything. It was one person that was acting within a constitution. He was killed, but the constitution is still there, other elements are there, and they are continuing with the constitution, and things worked on in a beautiful way. And so this idea that Sayyid Mujtaba came in because he's the son, that's completely something that can be,
In the very first letter he wrote, that I, like the people, found out about the vote of the experts council through the television at that time.
Exactly, yeah.
Showing that, look, he wasn't in a position where it's like, oh, it's expected, his father's the leader, he's also the leader, it's just gonna happen. He himself said, like you guys also found out, I found out the same way.
In fact, I think even for us who are so much into the running of the system, we know what's happening. I don't know about yourself. I'm telling you personally, I did not expect him to come after. And I think this, I'm saying this to show that how far this idea of hereditary is to the system, right? It's completely alien concept. We never thought, meaning the people here never thought that it's going to be Sayyid Mujtaba because he's the son of Sayyid Ali, right? At most, those who knew him better, so I didn't know him that well, but for those who knew him better, might have thought that, he's well qualified. And the fact that he's been spending time with the current supreme leader means that he's also gained a lot of experience, so it's possible. For me, because I didn't know him too well, I thought, other people qualify, I didn't know him too well. Just to say that this idea of hereditary is so alien to this whole thing.
Right? And you know where it also shows itself? If the people that were voting were people swayed by emotion, right? Normal people, you're missing your shaheed and you want to have somebody like him. But these are the top level mujtahids. Like, if you're going to attribute that to them, then we should start doubting our laws and everything.
And these are mujtahidin that are serious mujtahid when you see them in terms of their they're very their critiques are very strong. Sometimes you're scared, he's so precise. He's like, he's not going to take anything, he's not going to be fooled by a few, emotion and things like that. They're very staunch in their views. They're people who have adala, who have taqwa, who do things not out of a whim.
They've lived a life like that.
They've lived
70, 80, 60. People that have lived, you think that really that their opinion can be swayed for a decision like look, let's pick somebody like his father, be nice. Like, it's like something that doesn't even fit in our minds. It's something that doesn't make any sense.
If you're in the hawza, it's literally laughable. This idea is laughable.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, that I really feel sometimes we're blessed to be in a system that is so rational, that is so based on haqq. It's so clear. Things make so much sense.
Sorry, I'm interrupting, but one point that I feel is so central to this system and Shaheed Rahbar is their taqwa and their adala. I felt that was, maybe if we want to speak about, and I know time is reaching the end, but one part of his life that's the most central, it's his relationship with Allah, his relationship with the Quran.
So I was actually going to come to this point that when it comes to the wali faqih, very quickly, the wali faqih needs to have certain characteristics to be eligible for being the wali faqih. So one of them is his knowledge, his expertise knowledge, is being a mujtahid. Another one is his adala and his taqwa. Another one is his ability to manage. Right, so these are different skills. So sometimes we're not aware of the fact that there's a set of skills that needs to be had. The fact that he has awareness of social political matters and so on. So these are some of the qualities, but one of the key ones, and that's really the one I feel even more differentiates this leader compared to other leaders, is that taqwa, is that humility, is the fact that he controlled his nafs, very much in line with the hadith. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the crux of the whole system. You can have, they say that a knowledgeable person who doesn't have taqwa is like a thief with a torch. And you have a thief in a dark room, he picks up what he gets and he leaves. But a knowledgeable person knows where to hit, knows where to strike. It's more dangerous. And the centrality of taqwa in this system is something that gives it its value. That we know, and nobody had this doubt ever, that he would do something for his personal gain. That he would do something for a whimsical reason. We knew about his devotion and his commitment to taqwa. And that's something so bold. I feel, like I said, it's the most central aspect of his life. It's because of this, all of the other aspects fell into place.
Yes. The taqwa means that a person doesn't trespass his limits. He feels responsible towards Allah. He knows not to follow his nafs. If he's going to say something, he says it out of knowledge, not out of an opinion that's baseless. Taqwa sort of, creates those boundaries that keep him a person that is capable of carrying out those duties.
Also, just to add upon that, you see, this also clarifies the issue of the position of a wali faqih. You see, the position is a position at the time of ghaibat. That means it's a position whereby we don't have a ma'asum, imam al-ma'asum. That's when we bring a scholar, whereby the scholar is chosen by these Majlis al-Khobregan. He is also monitored by the Majlis al-Khobregan. This is why is all this system there. This system is there to make sure that we are aligning ourselves with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
In the absence of a ma'asum imam, the best we can do is try and be as close as we can to what a ma'asum would be.
And I just remembered one thing, and if I was just reading the names of the Nawab Arba'a, okay, when you mentioned the thing of hereditary, being hereditary. So, the first one was Uthman bin Sa'id. When we talk about Nawab Khas, the Nawab Khas at the time of Ghaibat al-Sughra.
Directly appointed representatives.
Directly appointed by Imam al-Zaman. Now, Imam al-Zaman, Ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, he would choose based on the ability of that person. Now, sometimes it so happens that the father and son, both qualify. It's possible. The example is Uthman bin Sa'id and Muhammad bin Uthman. These are father and son. Does that make the Nawab Arba hereditary? No. The next one after that was who? Hussein bin Ruh.
Completely different.
And after that, Ali bin Muhammad bin Samari. So these four Nawab, we have got a precedence. Therefore, a person different from the Ma'asum, but because of the qualification he was chosen, not because he was the son, but because he had the qualification. Also in the system of Wilayat al-Faqih, Imam Khomeini, after him was Ayatollah.
yeah.
Like if it was hereditary,
Yeah.
then we had the children of Imam. In fact, the son of Imam Khomeini was alive.
Was alive. And he was one of the people, the key people pushing for Ayatollah Khamenei being suitable.
Exactly, he was very key. And
Yeah.
the way you saw after Ayatollah Khamenei was chosen, with how much humility he came and said, now you are my wali,
Yeah.
and the wali of the believers.
Although he was a senior scholar himself.
Yes, he was
not
very
a person
senior. And
who's-
Imam Khomeini used to say, I used to love to discuss with his son. Used to love discussing because of the level of intellectual expertise he had. Yes.
So this idea of passing down from father to son is not alien to Islam. We have a lot of this. Prophet Sulaiman took over from Prophet Dawood. The Ahlul Bayt themselves, most of them are father to son. So in and of itself, taking over a responsibility from your father in and of itself is not wrong, as long as you have the qualities and the qualifications required for that.
Flip the situation. Imagine he was the most suitable and we'd block him just because he was a son.
Yeah.
But that makes sense?
Exactly.
Like you are the most suitable, but because you're a son, sorry, we have to
Sometimes
put you.
sometimes
Doesn't make any sense.
sometimes we're so apologetic and
Yeah.
we care so much about how other people will perceive that sometimes the person who deserves to be there, we would block
Put him
him
off.
because of these kind of ideas. No, if he was the most suitable and the experts are saying he was the most suitable, fair enough.
We accept it, yeah.
Santam. One of the things that really, when I think about Ayatollah Khamenei and his taqwa, is those few days when he was being elected. That those videos, again, those of you who are in doing your battle of narratives, if you're able to pull out this and spread it out everywhere, show the people that when Ayatollah Khamenei was being elected as the supreme leader, the one who's going to have power over everything, his reaction was, no, don't give me this, I don't want to do this. And it wasn't, Iranians do ta'aruf, right? those who know, you do ta'aruf, you're like, no, thank you. But in reality, he wants to do it, right? He actually went forward on the pulpit and started giving arguments for why he shouldn't be.
The most lucrative position in the whole government.
Exactly.
It's very,
This is the highest
people
position.
would want it, right? I mean,
It's the highest
for a
position.
rich country,
Yeah,
especially.
yeah.
And he's furiously arguing for why he shouldn't be. It's not like it wasn't those very superficial arguments. He was actually challenging people in front of you that don't elect me because of this, and still they elected him. And this is where you realize that the person who truly deserves to have that responsibility usually runs away from it. He doesn't run after it, right? And that really shows his taqwa. The fact that he wasn't thirsty for power, the fact that he stayed over for all these years wasn't because he wanted the seat. The responsibility was given to him, and there's a speech after that once he was elected, really beautiful speech, again something that should be subtitled and spread out, where he says that I didn't want to take it, but now that I've been given, I will take it with full force. I will take it and
fall short of my
I
responsibilities.
won't fall short of my responsibility. I will do the best I can to fulfill this. And this is just something really amazing.
Look at his zuhd, the way that he lived his life completely detached from this world. There's a hadith that says, أفضل الزهد إخفاء الزهد. The best zuhd is to hide your zuhd. Sometimes we ate a bit less lunch, for example, you go around, I didn't have much today. Or for example, you have a simple place in your house, people say, this is my house, this is what it is. We didn't know about his house until it was destructed. Nobody had seen the interior of his house. It was destructed. Photos were released. Even that, if you've seen the photos, it's like one photo from a distance. He doesn't even have a carpet in his house. Maybe people outside don't understand that, but having a carpet is like, they don't have, like, for example, sofas, they have a carpet. They don't have like a dining table, they have a carpet.
Even this basic hosa we're in, the very basic and simple hosa that we have.
We have carpets. He didn't have a carpet in his house. Look at the style of his house, the detachment he had. Although he had the ability, and he was warranted at that stage, somebody would say, okay, you're running the whole country. There's even photos of his slippers sometimes, although he'd be very careful that people don't see this, but sometimes certain angles caught this, that a portion of his slipper would be repaired. Slippers, look, like we don't repair our slippers. This we've only heard of from Imam Ali alayhi salam. So he's a student of that school of thought.
In fact, adding from the issue of zuhd, the level of zuhd and lack of attachment to this world that Rahbar had, is that sometimes so zuhd is not just about these physical amenities, let's say. It's also about the love for power, let's say, and position, and how people attach themselves to you. So sometimes, like, imagine 1 million people standing in front of you, all of them chanting, we are ready to give you our blood, our life. You get a bit like, your heart can
feel good a bit.
You get carried away.
You can get carried away. Like you can start to tremble a bit and feel, maybe I'm something or I'm someone. But Rahbar once when this was happening, he said that I know that your love for me is because of Islam. That is the actual love that you have. You know, and I don't know if this is the place, but I remember one story one of our teachers was telling us that there was one student of one of the teachers and was saying, I love you very much. I love you very much all the time. And you are the best teacher I've ever seen. So one day the teacher called him and told him, you know what, that teacher there is more expert in Islam and he's better than me. So I said, where is he? Can I go to him? So the teacher gave him a slap and tells him, all this time you're telling me you love me. Now you realize who you actually love. You love the Islam. Rahbar understood this reality, that Islam is the actual thing. The attachment to the values is the actual thing that these people are coming for.
It didn't bloat him. The love of the people didn't bloat him. He stayed the same.
And once, Ayatollah Saadat Parwar, the teacher, one of the great spiritual scholars, he says that one day when Rahbar, when he was still young, he had come to Qom. Now Qom is a city of knowledgeable scholars, and scholars are everywhere, and scholars, they have their the beards and they have the nice amama there, and you see them running after the car and they're all, Rahbar, we want to see you once, just look at us once, Scholars, big scholars, they say, come, we want to greet you, want to catch a glimpse of you, kiss your hand. And so this was an amazing thing for a young person, like Rahbar was young, he came to Qom. So one person asked Ayatollah Saadat Parwar, how do you assess this? He says, this is a manifestation of the zuhd, the physical manifestation of the zuhd and the asceticism of Ayatollah Khamenei. This is spiritually how he was, that manifestation was in that sense.
Yes. So he was really a special person, and he didn't go after the people. I think there's a hadith that says that if you go after Allah, then Allah will put the love of the people, the love of you in the hearts of the people. Right?
So there's one hadith says, "Man aslaha ma baynahu wa bayna Allah, aslaha Allah ma baynahu wa bayna an-nas." If you sort your relation this way, Allah will sort the relation with the people.
Allah will create the love of the place of love for you.
In the hearts of the people. Yeah. One of the things that really defining for me, because when you're faced with a person like this, there's a lot of propaganda against him, and we don't have direct access. Okay, we hear stories from his family members, for example, but again, this skepticism comes and says maybe they're making up stuff, maybe they're lying, this and that. One of the things that was really defining for me was the fact that some of the greatest scholars, spiritual masters, philosophers, people at the highest caliber of knowledge and taqwa would show humility and praise Ayatollah Khamenei, Shaheed. And this for me was very defining. For the likes of Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, the likes of Ayatollah Tahriri, the likes of Ayatollah Hassan Zadi Amuli, the likes of Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, people who you respect them for their intellectual, greatness, for the knowledge they have, the taqwa they have. And when they say, no, but look at Ayatollah Khamenei, we love him, we are humble in front of him. Okay, if they understand him, and if they with that knowledge understand this of him, then
being older than him, being more senior, apparently at the start at least of his when he became the leader,
being a philosopher of the East and the West, like he's respected even in the West.
Definitely.
Once he was sitting somewhere, like his children, I don't know if you saw that clip, his son was quoting this, that my father, when we would go to meet Rahbar.
Who is this?
His son, Ayatollah Misbah's son.
Ayatollah
Misbah Yazdi's son. He says when we used to go to visit Rahbar, my father, despite his age, would wait till the middle of the night for us to come back home. And when we would come back home, he would kiss our eyes because we saw Rahbar.
In fact, I was going to say that I don't know when you saw this, but Ayatollah Mushtaba Misbah actually said this last week in one of these night protests. He had come to the street and he was giving the speech, and he actually said this exact story. And I was recording him saying this story. I'll try and share it out, inshallah, subtitle and share it out. He was even saying that Ayatollah Misbah would say that if you go and meet Ayatollah Khamenei, then if you can, try and kiss his hands. because it's such an amazing person. And this is like a high-level scholar who's saying this, right? Those of you who know Ayatollah
That's
Misbah
like for his
Yazdi,
intellectual precision. He was not an emotional, like he was not like he was a very loving person, but he was not like be swayed by some emotional story or something. He was an accurate person. You look at the incision with which he has dissected some of the philosophical works. It's just amazing.
So alhamdulillah, I think we've spoken over an hour now about Ayatollah Khamenei, and there is much more.
Yeah, we haven't covered
so we had
yet.
other things to speak about, but it's been quite a long one. Those who are watching on your computers, you can pause, go get a cup of tea and stuff. These guys who are in front of us, they're stuck right now. To respect, they're not walking out and grabbing a cup of coffee or tea. So I think we'll bring it to an end over here. If you get another opportunity, we try to speak about him more. I think he deserves to be spoken about. I think his works deserve to be spread out. People should learn his way of looking at Islam, at looking at social political matters. His tafsir of the Quran. So there's a series of tafsir of the Quran that has been released based on his speeches and his tafsir principles. There's a lot to learn from him. There's a lot to get inspired by him. Those of you who are in leadership positions, whether it's at the leadership of a community or of an organization, or even the leadership of a small group of youths, or doing things, his leadership model, how he behaved with people, his humility, his kindness, but at the same time his vision, his insight, his management, all of these things you can learn from him and really implement that in your life. And so he's really an amazing role model. There's a lot to learn from him, a lot to be inspired from him, and inshallah we can all benefit from that. So again, those of you who are participating in the battle of narratives, do put a few minutes and try and help us and help the Muslim Ummah present our role models to those who are unaware, those who are outside the Ummah, who don't know these, who are deprived of these blessings. Let us share these amazing blessings and show the people, and maybe it's through these kind of efforts that we'll be able to present the narrative that Islam has. This is how we can teach Islam to people, right? When the hadith says, call people towards us without your tongues, right, through your actions, where he was an embodiment of what Islam teaches us, what the Ahlul Bayt have taught us. So if we're able to present him and show how he was, how he lived, what his thoughts were, we are presenting an embodiment of Islam to the rest of the world. And this is how we can show people what Islam truly is. So if you're a muballigh of Islam, you care about people learning about Islam, then this is a package, a complete package that you can show people, and inshallah everybody can benefit. So thank you very much, Sheikh Ali, Sheikh Mustafa. Thank you to all of you for being here, for listening. And inshallah we'll continue with more episodes talking about different aspects of the current affairs of the war in Iran and things that are happening. They're happening very, very fast. So we're trying to produce quickly, but obviously we're trying to catch up. But obviously, like we said, we're not necessarily doing an analysis of what's happening on ground at the moment. We're not political analysts. We're trying to give you a perspective of Islam with regards to these events. And hopefully these principles and these perspectives will be applicable in future similar events as well, if they happen to occur. So inshallah we'll come back and be with you in the next episode. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.